Can the trustees come to the dais?
Madam President, you have a quorum.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're calling the meeting of the Board of Trustees to order at 7:01 p.m. for Tuesday, March 13th. And we will start with Trustee Hollis. Can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Madam Clerk, would you care to do the roll call?
Trustee Weinstein? Student Trustee Moore, not here. Trustee Handy? Trustee Withrow?
Here.
Trustee Gonzalez Yuan? Student Trustee Hollis?
Present.
Trustee Bonilla? Trustee Riley?
Present.
And Trustee Brown?
Present.
Thank you.
Trustee Handy, would you care to give the report of action taken in closed session?
I'm reading all of both of them. Under Agenda Item 10.1, consider approval of short-term assignments. Bianca Turner has been added as a short-term hourly clerical assistant at Laney College in the psychology department. The anticipated start date is March 14th, 2018, and the anticipated end date is May 25th. 11.2, anticipated completion date should be, changed to August 31st, 2018. Okay. As tonight's closed session, the board voted to ratify the appointment of the following public employee contract, which is subject to contractual agreement by the chancellor. Ratification of the chancellor's approval to extend Christine Williams' appointment as interim vice chancellor of finance and administration effective March 1st, 2018 through April 30th, 2018 at $192,649 annually. Ayes 4, noes 3, abstain 0. None absent. The abstentions were Bonilla, Weinstein, and Gonzalez-Ewan. If any of these individuals are present, please stand so that we can welcome you into your new position. Thank you. Okay.
Trustee.
I have another piece to add to that.
No, before you, the one at abstentions, there were no's.
Zero no's, 0 absent. 3 no's, 4 abstention.
I apologize.
4 ayes.
I apologize for seeking attention.
And the cost for positions being paid through op-ed, and the position will provide direct support to the retirement board.
Short-term employees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good, that's good.
Okay, that concludes.
So, thank you, trustee Handy, for the report of action taken in closed session. Oh, sorry. Thank you, trustee Handy, for the report of the action taken in closed session. And I believe, trustee Handy, that you just said there was one additional item that was on the, added to, okay.
Point of clarification, what trustee Handy read earlier, what should be read under approval of the agenda.
All right, so the next item is 4.4, approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
And that would include, there are 2 items that trustee Handy had read. That would include under item 10.1, consider approval of short-term assignments. Bianca Turner has been added as a short-term hourly clerical assistant at Laney College in psychology department. The anticipated start date is March 14th, 2018, and the anticipated end date is May 25th. 11.2, anticipated complete date should be changed to August 31st, 2018. So the motion has been made to approve the agenda, and it's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. We'll have a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We have 2 abstentions. Okay, the next item on the agenda is, well, the motion carries. Next item on the agenda is associated student government reports. And we have trustee Hollis. Oh, I'm sorry, we have.
Okay, perfect. Nice to see everyone again. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Marcus Stewart, and I'm the student body president at Berkeley City. So all the updates I will be giving you will be adhering to that. The first thing I want to speak about is an A2Men conference that we were able to go on the other week, and we are chaperoned by Andre Singleton, who is not here, but I would like to publicly thank him and also publicly thank our president, Rowena, for funding the event. We were allowed to travel to Los Angeles with about 4 other students, and at this conference, we heard Roland Martin and Angela Rise speak. We also attended a workshop that was led by Dr. Harris and Dr. Woods from San Diego State University. It was a workshop about Black Minds Matter, and all the different workshops and everything there included such events. And then as far as senator recruitment, we've recently filled 2 positions within our within our student body government, and we are currently pending for a 3rd one. As far as our shared governance committees, we have 9 out of our 11 committees filled. We just need to fill our tech and ed committee. As far as tabling for the spring 2018 elections, we are now tabling currently, and we're actually doing really well. There are a lot of people coming up for different positions, and we are getting more and more students involved. As far as Live Week, we have Live Week coming up on May 9th and May 10th, and we will be conducting a student panel for Q&As during that day. Tomorrow, we are blessed to have our chancellor stop by, so we look forward to that. And then as far as community engagement, we've conducted a social hour that we've been doing every Monday, just to kind of get the week started off much more, active, rather than everybody coming to school kind of dull, feeling down. So during college hour, we have multiple games down there, ring toss, things of that nature. And then, of course, as hopefully many of you know, it is March Madness, so for sports, I've taken the liberty to create a bracket at my school for faculty, administrators, and for the students. That's why this was the last event. Not exactly important, but I do feel like it's a social event that can get everyone together. But the next thing that I will introduce is we have a student from our school that will be giving a small speech about a project that she's spearheaded. So if you would please give the attention to Rose Hansen.
Hello. Today I stand before you as a proud student worker for the Peralta Community College District, a district that prides itself on empowering our students to achieve their highest aspirations, to develop leaders who create opportunities and transform lives. I believe every student that attends one of the 4 great colleges of Peralta is capable of success. However, I also know what it's like to experience sexual harassment. During my time at Peralta, I have been able to participate in trainings that will benefit the students that I serve in their academic endeavors. As a student worker, I received no training regarding sexual harassment. We are peers to these students, and as students, we must take an initiative to better our community. When I first got a job here, I was sent a 20-page document outlining Peralta's policies and procedures towards unlawful discrimination and sexual harassment. The first pages outlined that the workplace should be free of unlawful discriminatory harassment. On that same page, the district promises to take steps to provide employee orientation and trainings regarding this issue. Recently, I spearheaded a sexual harassment training to be held at Berkeley City College for the staff and tutors of the Learning Resources Center. After becoming aware of the sexual harassment other tutors and students experienced, as well as my own struggles on the issue, I knew something had to be done. However, in Peralta's policies, student workers are not included in the text. This made it difficult to educate staff on what to do in such a serious situation. Students within Peralta have experienced sexual harassment as well, as 1 in 4 women in college will experience sexual assault. By providing sexual assault training for new and current employees, including student workers, we are showing our community at Peralta that this behavior is not condoned. Students deserve to have a safe space where their academic interests are explored and their scholarly curiosities piqued. These trainings will allow us as students to integrate what we learn into action, to speak up when something occurs, and to identify warning signs early. These trainings would be but a small investment into preventing this harassment from happening to anyone else. As of today, the current Title IX, as referenced in the district policy, says that third-party harassment or hostile work environment harassment is the unwelcome conduct that alters an individual's learning or work environment. I can tell you that this type of harassment happens all too often in our society. Our own students are inhibited by fear and anxiety, unable to achieve the academic goals the district aspires to nurture. We must do more for our students. We must strive to uphold the standards that first built this great community. I'm proud of my school, and I hope that one day, with the decision of the board, we will achieve a safe workplace for students and its employees. Thank you.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. My name is Myla Trong. I am representing College of Alameda. I would like to first start off by thanking the district for the opportunity to attend Camp Wellstone. That was an amazing experience, and I want to give a special thank you to Trustee Nikki Yen for leading the camp and sharing so much knowledge and inspiration that we will definitely apply to our future community organizing projects for College of Alameda and Peralta as a whole. This month, we are celebrating Women's History Month, and we started off with a Women in STEM conference, which brought STEM professionals to inspire our student body. And then our next event is we're sponsoring a free screening of the documentary movie Dolores, about the activist Dolores Huerta, which is on March 19th at 12 p.m. And then after the viewing of the movie, we will have a discussion. And then the second event will be on March 27th, which we will be bringing the activist and community organizer Fabiana Rodriguez to provide an hour lecture on the role of art and culture in social change movements. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Keith Welch. I'm president of Laney College, Associated Students of Laney College. I'm here to give you a review of what we've been accomplishing so far in the spring semester. First thing we'd like to do is that we want to challenge food insecurity that's on campus. So that was our main focus so far this semester. So when school started, Monday through Thursday, we gave free fruit, apples, oranges, and bananas 4 days a week for about 5 or 6 hours, and coffee and orange juice for all the new arriving students. Another thing we did, we went to the camp with Nick Gonzalez in this beautiful place, the Quakerland, which is a gorgeous place to go to, and we had meetings, and Nick was trying to tell us, like, where do the students go for information? So we said the ASLC. And so what we have done with that is that we have implemented that on campus. So we go through the ICC, which has got 22 clubs on campus. And one of our ICC club members are the Social Justice Center. So what the Social Justice Center is doing voter registration, and they got an amendment that they try to get on the board called College for All. And so that right there is great. We got our architectural club that we're going to a state event in April. So we're allowing our clubs to venture out and get more student participation with our clubs. And with our clubs, it come with food insecurity again. So all our events that we have, we provide the clubs money to feed our students. Also, our financial aid director, Mr. Joseph, has allowed his church to give food to our students on Tuesday. So every Tuesday of the month, we have a food bank for our students with the Alameda Food Bank. Another thing we did was Black History Month. Our Black History Month consists of our Black Student Union, which is provide food 4 or 5 days out of the week for students, which include breakfast. They also did a great thing by giving us Black Panther movie tickets to go see the movie Black Panther. You know, that was great and everything. So another thing we're doing, we got 6 of our graduates on the ASLC will be graduating. So I'm one of them. Corey is one of them. So we will be graduating. So if I wasn't able to come to this meeting because that's my main focus is graduating. So that's what I want to do and everything. But I would try to make it all to the meetings from now on this semester and everything. So what we also is questioning, what we're concerned about is called mental health. Mental health on our campus is a very serious problem. And mental health comes in all different stages, not just mental, but physical too. You know, if you're homeless and you ain't got nowhere to stay and you're trying to go to school and you ain't got no food, that's a form of mental health right there. So mental health comes in all different areas of people's life. So right now we're working with mental health on school to try to get them another room so they can maximize the mental health on campus for students. Because mental health is a serious problem. And we try to wrap our arms around it, just like we're trying to wrap our arms around food insecurity. And also, we're part of the Poor People Campaign. So a lot of people don't know what the Poor People Campaign is. A teach-in. I just left a meeting with them where we're trying to organize poor people to understand what poor people are going through and trying to survive. So that's a great thing that we're working on right now is the teach-in with the Poor People Campaign. And we will be sending students to the Diversity Training Alliance in San Diego. I think that's in April or beginning of May. That we will send 4 students, and one of our students we will be sending is through the Gateway on campus. So she could bring that information back and they can educate our students on the Gateway program of diversity and alliance in school. And that's about it. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That concludes our Associated Student Government reports. Yeah, the one additional item that was the readout for closed session. was that the cost for the position,
I read that.
oh, you did? Oh, okay. All right, my apologies.
All right.
So the next item is the Peralta Classified Senate Report,
Oh, I thought you were talking.
and I do not see Clevon. Do we have anyone here to give the Peralta Classified Senate Report? And we also don't have the academic. Do we have academic Senate report? Okay, then the next item would be the Chancellor's report.
I'm pleased to report to the board that the Planning and Budgeting Committee decided a couple of weeks ago that it wanted to work very closely on issues having to do with the budget. I know that you hear about it quite a bit during comments that are made either through the Academic Senate or through members of through public comments. But I wanted to share with you that PBC, which is the Planning Budgeting Committee, will be meeting this week for a special meeting to look at, to start working on the budget. And we have been encouraging, I have been encouraging them, and we all have been encouraging them to spend more time dedicated to working on the budget. And that is the best way that we can have the proper involvement that we desire for faculty and staff to have in the budget development process. I want to share with you that I started what we call resource conversations or needs assessment at all of our colleges. We started with Merritt College and Sharon Cornu, as well as Dr. Mary Denise Jackson, and I spoke with faculty, staff, students, and administrators. We hear the needs that they know exist at each college. Tomorrow we're going to be at Berkeley City College, and Thursday at Laney College, and then the week after we're going to be at College of Alameda. This is a way for us to really assess the entire needs of the district, and then to spend the time to quantify what those needs are so that we have a clear indication of all the needs that we have in the district. And then to look at the kind of partnerships that are closely aligned to our mission that would allow us to really meet some of those needs. So we will be providing interim reports about what we are finding from time to time, and very much appreciate the work that students, faculty, staff, and the administrators, especially the presidents, are doing to help us make those presentations or have those sessions so that we can learn a whole lot more about the needs that we have district-wide. We will end these sessions with several departments within the district office itself. So that concludes my report, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Chancellor. The next item we have on the agenda is public comment, public communication. And we have Trustee Handy with the cards.
Our first speaker is student speaker Keith Welch. Next, we will have Michael Mills and Margaret Mills, so if you can all line up, thank you.
Okay. First of all, my public comment to you, Chancellor, to Madam President, I just want to say thank you to you. Thank you for entrusting in me the student body at Laney College. Thank you for allowing me to make judgment that's best for the students. Thank you for all the love and support that y'all have given me. And I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, and more thank you to you. So when I graduate, is there anything I can do to help Laney College out of the Peralta District? Just let me know, and I'm yours. Okay? Thank you.
Michael Mills, and then Margaret Mills, if you could be in line.
Margaret, who is, by the way, related to me, is yielding her time. And I think Brad is too,
Yes,
is he? But I don't think I'm going to need that.
okay.
I'm Michael Mills, and I'm chairperson of the Citizens Oversight Committee. And in doing my income tax, our property tax statement popped up. In between the $195 owed to school measure G and the $120 owed to Oakland Unified District's measure H lies Peralta's Community College's measure B's $48. And so it just stuck out to me, and so, okay, why not talk about tonight? Two quick thoughts to pass on regarding the parcel tax. One, exercise caution when examining this year's draft budget. The Citizens Oversight Committee, or COC, learned a lesson from 3 vice chancellors of finance ago. He presented a draft budget which had a considerable sum of parcel tax revenue appearing in the academic side. Finally, we thought, movement in the right direction. Included in the paperwork was a copy of the previous year's actual expenses, year-end actuals. Somewhere along the line, high percentages of parcel tax revenue disappeared from academics and reappeared in the classified. In sum, the actual expenditures bore little resemblance to the original budget. There was no explanation as to why paying the salaries of permanently hired classified was necessary. Absent also was any notation of their role in carrying out ballot language activities. Moral here? Insist that the actual expenditures of parcel tax revenues reflect far more accurately the numbers from the original budget. Have the two coincide. Second thought regards the remaining 2 years of the parcel tax infusion. As trustees, you wield ultimate control over its use. 2 years remain to reverse course and turn away from excessive expenditures for district classified personnel and towards finally implementing ballot language intent. Debbie Weintraub, a former English faculty member, PFT president, and currently a COC member, suggested several superb ideas. Number 1, lower classroom size. Number 2, offer more tutoring opportunities. Number 3, provide counseling of all sorts, including mental health and academic counseling, and Keith Wells underscored the need for mental health counseling. Number 4, offer more sections as specified in the original 2012 ballot language. Number 5, and this is not the last, it can be on with others, support staff to assist in figuring out registration and financial aid. It can be a little daunting to students, new students trying to get into the system to understand registration and financial aid, and the support staff to assist would be a great help. Debbie concludes her excellent list with a reminder that the shared governance process should be capable of clearly determining how monies get properly allocated to the colleges. Using the remaining 2 years to radically shift gears, implement these and other ideas, broadcast the results. Proudly proclaim that our colleges are using this cash infusion to do their level best to assist students in their quest to succeed. Give actual examples of how students have benefited. Forgo platitudes. In the past 3 years, full-time enrolled students, FTES, in Peralta have dropped by nearly 2,000, or 1,816 to be more exact, the last figures I saw. Perhaps proper use of parcel tax revenues combined with general fund revenues could reverse this disturbing trend. If these 2 remaining years produce promising results that mirror the 2012 ballot language, the district could have reason to ask taxpayers to please continue paying an additional $48 per year to assist students in their vital quest to improve themselves and our community. If that happens, and if complete budget transparency supports the turnaround, then it is quite probable that no one from the present or future COC will oppose the request. I conclude with a Libby Schaff quote from today's San Francisco Chronicle. Quote, "Our democracy depends on public servants who act with integrity and hold transparency in the highest regard." That's what we're looking for, is transparency. Thank you for your attention. Let's continue the dialogue.
Next is Blake Johnson, and then Jennifer Sanowski. Is Blake Johnson in the room? Is he here? No. Can he cede his time if he's not here? Come on up to the podium, you're next to speak.
That's what we've done in the past, so. Okay, so, good evening. So I'd like to start by congratulating the 30 newly tenured faculty within the Peralta Community College District. The PFT has long been a really vocal advocate for more full-time faculty, and we hope that full-time faculty hiring and part-time equity will be prioritized in order to ensure that we have a dedicated, invested faculty as we move forward. In the e-communique that I sent out today, I noted the PFT concerns over the hiring of another interim vice chancellor. This time, it's a duplicate employee. AP 7123 that I have quoted before states that an interim appointment is a temporary appointment to a management position that has been vacated and is deemed necessary to fill on an interim basis until a regular appointment has been made. By extending the contract of an interim vice chancellor of finance and administration, when we have a permanent member in that position, is a clear violation of the clear and plain language of that administrative policy. In a meeting today with the chancellor, and then again reiterated this evening, I understand that the duties are being divided up, and so they will be doing different jobs. The job description, however, and the job title are the same, and so the PFT continues to have questions about the use of these interim appointments. The use of general funds in this way to hire a duplicate position comes at a time when the district has indicated to the colleges that there will be a reduction in the FTES targets for next year. This FTES reduction translates to a reduced budget to the colleges, since fewer FTES will translate to fewer sections if we keep the productivity at the same level. So, as the fall schedule was already developed by most of the colleges, what this means is that faculty are being asked to reduce the section offerings. These sections are associated with part-time faculty jobs and the students that those part-time faculty serve. We have a number of issues associated with the process, as I understand it thus far. First, this reduced FTES target has not been fully vetted through the shared governance processes, but the directives have been given to the colleges. Second, the parcel tax money that you've just heard about should, as we've heard many times before, be used for instruction. The instruction provided through the use of those funds could generate FTES and should be used to ameliorate the budgetary issues that are associated with this decrease in FTES. Third, the budget that's being provided to the colleges, which has not yet gone through the shared governance process for next year, is based on a productivity of 17.5, as in the past. And this means that we're budgeting the colleges for faculty, assuming that we will have 35 students in each class. If the district is providing funding to the colleges at a productivity of 17.0, then the change in the target would be financially the same for the colleges. So I did the math and took a 19,500 FTES and a 19,000 FTES and figured out what the difference in productivity would be, and it's a difference of 0.5. Fourth, these scheduling changes are being made in order to shore up this budget. And as I just mentioned, the budget has not yet been confirmed by the shared governance bodies nor by the board. We haven't confirmed the budgeting and planning calendar for the district, which we'll be talking about this Friday at the extra PBC meeting that we'll be holding. But the question is, why are we executing plans based on a budget associated with a decreased FTES target, none of which has gone through the process yet? The cuts that are occurring at the colleges, and I realize that these are not actual cuts because we have not offered the classes yet, but the apparent cuts to the schedule are really demoralizing for faculty and will certainly affect our ability to reach the FTES targets that we have set for ourselves, even the lower target of 19,000. In addition, we don't know yet where the cuts are occurring at other parts of the district. The PFT is concerned that cuts are being made that will negatively impact the classrooms, and we really demand that these budgetary decisions go through shared governance and that cuts are made as far away from the classroom as possible. The district has grown in terms of the amount of money spent on academic administrators from 2012 to 2016, which is the last year that we have actuals for, by 71%. Please make the hard choices to ensure that our budget is produced in a way that includes everyone's input and that supports student first. Thank you.
Do we have any further public? The next item we have on our agenda is presentation, and that would be the scorecard report presentation.
Yes. Thank you. Good evening, Board of Trustees, colleagues, and community. Annually, we present the scorecard review to our community, and my job tonight is to give you a brief overview about what the scorecard is about, and then each of the college presidents will talk about some particular initiatives and efforts at their colleges. So the scorecard is produced by the Chancellor's Office, the State Chancellor's Office, and it examines degrees, certificates, persistence, completion, and looks at basic skills, English and math, as well as ESL. Tonight I have a few slides to show you an overall presentation of overall completion, persistence, ESL, basic skills, English, and math. Before we look at some of that data, the scorecard has cohorts, and these cohorts consist of first-time college students with a minimum of 6 units earned who attempted a course in English or math in the first 3 years. And then those students are tracked for 6 years. So you're looking at data from 2011 and 12 to 2015-16. And they then look at completion and persistence in 3 categories: those students who are college prepared, those who were unprepared for college, and then an overall look at the data. So the first slide is looking at a 5-year trend in overall completion rates. And you can see that in Peralta, we are nearing, by the way, the gold line is the state average, and 3 of the 4 colleges are very close to the state average. And all of them are either flat or increasing. And then down below is a 6-year award count trend for each of the colleges, starting on your left with College of Alameda, then Berkeley, then Laney, and then Merritt. And you can see that year after year with the same year range that each of the colleges are increasing their overall completion rates. And this is a 5-year trend in overall persistence. Again, the gold line being the state average. And you can see as well what's happening here with our colleges, that there's a mixed bag here of decreases and then increases, but that each college is increasing and getting closer towards the average. And this is a look at the 5-year success rate for ESL courses. And again, the gold is the state average. And note that Berkeley City College is above the state average. And the other colleges as well, it's a mixed bag, but of increases and decreases. And then down below is our overall data from fall 17 for course success rates in ESL. And you see a range from 55.9% to 80.7%. And this is a look at our 5-year success rate on the scorecard for basic skills English. Again, the goal being the state average and where we're at in the colleges. And down below, the success rates for basic skills English ranging from 52% to 68%. And also for math. And you can see increases for all of the colleges noted by the scorecard, even some above the state average. And then our fall course success rates for basic math ranging from 42% to 63%. And next, I'd like to invite up President Rowena Toman-Yang to talk about Berkeley City College and some of the efforts happening there.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. So you'll see a parallel slide for all 3 colleges. So this is just a snapshot of what you find in the scorecard in terms of demographic information of the students, gender, age, race, and ethnicity, and then also other information, full-time equivalents, for example, credit, non-credit, student counseling ratio, etc. This next slide focuses on the degree certificate transfer completion rate, and you can see there that the comparison, which is what the scorecard asks us to do, for prepared students, unprepared, and then overall. For the persistence, we have the unprepared having a higher rate at persistence than the overall students and prepared. For the 30-unit achievement rate, 62.1%, and the CTE rate, or now career education CE rate, 44.8%. So focusing in on first and second year transfer level English achievement, and this will be followed by mathematics. And so for the 2014-2015 cohort, if you take a look there, BCC has been doing fairly well compared to the statewide averages for both first year and second year. I'll focus in on females. So if you take a look at female students, BCC is at the 72%, while the statewide first year average is 31%. For males, likewise, it's 68% above the statewide average of 37%. For African American students and Hispanic students, we have an increase as well in English achievement. So for African American students, we have 62%, much higher than the statewide average there of 43%. Similarly, for Latino students, we have 69% as opposed to the 51% for the statewide average. For math, you also see an increase above the statewide average. So again, if we focused on the female students, BCC, we have a 40% average there as increase over the statewide average of first year 15% and then second year 27%. Then if we go to African Americans and Hispanic students, BCC has a 19%, which is above the 8% for first year statewide, and also a little above second year statewide. So you know we have to do more work there in terms of African American students. For the Hispanic students, we have 41%, which is significantly higher than the statewide average of 11% and almost double of the statewide for the second year. So what have we specifically been doing in terms of increasing these rates? So we have leveraged the grant funds for the Basic Skills Initiative and then also for the Basic Skills Student Outcomes Transformation Grant. And so specifically, we are providing proactive student support services integration. Math, what it looks like is increasing the work that tutors are doing with students both inside and outside of the classroom. We're ramping up embedded tutoring, so having more tutors inside the classroom working with faculty. For English, we have tutors working with students in the writing workshop courses and also in the writing center. We've also been able to develop 2 and 3 course sequences for completion of a college-level English or mathematics course for underprepared students. So for math, we have implemented a shortened course sequence to statistics. We've got a Math 206 Algebra for Statistics to a Math 13 Intro to Statistics. And for English, we've implemented a shortened sequence to English 1A. We have an English 264 to English 1A. So the other language that we've been using statewide for these shortened sequences is acceleration. And so those are just 2 of the different kinds of proactive practices that we've been doing to leverage those 2 grants from the state. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to College of Alameda, Dr. Karras.
All right, let me turn the slide here. Whoop, nope, don't touch that. All right, so College Alameda, this is the same data you'll see on all 4 colleges. This is pulled from the scorecard. So once again, it's our cohort information with the, for the state's scorecard. So it's not our current students, our past students. Similarly, the slide will be cohesive to all the colleges. As you can see, with our prepared students, of course, their degree and transfer completion is higher. I think that would be, it's probably logical. If you're prepared, you probably complete at a higher rate than an unprepared student. I don't think that's shocking. Our persistence rate is pretty flat amongst all, which is a little bit interesting. And then our achievement of the 30-unit threshold is 68.9%, and our CTE rate is 53%. We have a large CTE portfolio at COA. And this thing doesn't like me. Okay, come on, there we go. And then like the other ones, our 30-year achievement rate has been going up for COA. The bottom slide just pulls out one segment of our population in the scorecard. This one just focuses on our African American students earning 30 units or more. And you can see how at COA we are doing substantially better in that population than statewide. So we're quite proud of that. We're actually making some progress, as we should, and moving a needle. One of the iterations that we're doing in the scorecard, so this is with current students. So once again, the scorecard's really looking at a cohort of the past 6 years, so it feels a little bit stale sometimes to people. So we have interventions that we're doing right now to try to move the needle. And one of the interventions, similar to what you'll hear with the other colleges, is in our mathematics area using some of our basic skills transformation grant information and our faculty in that discipline, is doing something called a co-requisite model for acceleration in mathematics. Math 13 in Peralta lingo is statistics, and that's a gateway course in mathematics for many students. And so what we've done, we've put a co-req with it of Math 213, so it kind of seems the same. And what that does is it allows students who used to not be able to place into Math 13 to place into Math 13 if you take this small co-req course to give some additional support at the same time. So we're saying if you just need a little bit more support and you can be in transfer level math already, you don't have to do remedial. And we've just started offering this, so you'll see in this slide, we only have 45 students so far because we just started this last semester that have completed the cohorting, but we're seeing really good rates. They are actually outperforming the non-cohort, the non-students in the support course. They're having a success rate of 78%, and the people not in this, who are going directly into Math 13 have 64%, and their withdrawal rate is also far less, about half. So you can see this is promising practices that we hope will continue and then move the needle even more into the future in math. And then in English, like many of our colleges, we're going through a large transformation in placement of multiple measures that we're more robustly implementing throughout the district. And what we did is we just pulled a slide once we started really more robustly using multiple measures in English and an assessment where they place, as you'll see here just through the placement in the difference column, which is the far right column, is you'll see English 269, which is our lowest level mathematics. through the new multiple measures, far fewer students are being placed that low in mathematics now. It's declining by 62%. Fewer are being placed in that level using multiple measures, which includes high school transcripts. And what's happening is basically students are moving up a level, which is great, because that's what we want. And so you can see a 125% increase in 201, which is the one level below transfer. So more and more students were now placed in that, and that's our main now kind of meat and potatoes English level. And then even now 1A, we're showing that math, God, I keep all in math. English 1A is 13% increase. So we're even getting more students already right out of the chute into college transfer level, which is all about, multiple measures, all about better placement and accelerating students through their units. So those are two of the interventions that we're doing to keep moving our needle forward. The scorecard is great, it's the past, and we keep wanting to move it up more. So every year when we have a scorecard presentation, you'll see better and better metrics. And I think next up is wonderful Laney College.
Thank you. Thanks for the what. Good evening, trustees, community. Thank you so much for the opportunity. So again, similarly, Laney College's demographic data you can see here. And you can see in 15-16, we had 19,000 students was our head count there. And you can see the breakdown by demographic categories. Here is the data, again, similar to my colleagues here. I would point out a couple of things. A very consistent persistence rate amongst underprepared and prepared in terms of our overall students. And you can see similar trends that we're all struggling with across the colleges about how do we best support our underprepared students in getting and reaching degree and certificate completion. You'll notice here, again, I wanted to point out, I do see that the CTE rate is a little bit lower here at 48.6%, but I want to again say that the economy is robust, and we know that many of our students are leaving to completion before getting the certificates because they're not actually needing them. And so there is a part of the scorecard data that's not in this presentation today that is really about the CTE success rates, and they've added that to the scorecard as well. So in future iterations, I hope we'll show what's going on in the career sector and how we're measuring that. You can see here 5-year trends for Laney College in terms of our CTE completion, and then some more depth of a dive for CTE completion. And we continue to serve and be doing well for students both under 20 and over 40. And we have a fairly good completion rate for women in career technical education, and now called career education. So I'm going to highlight 2 programs for you specifically tonight, and it's very quick pieces of data. So we have 2 learning communities and support program. One is our Umoja Ibaka Student Success Community, and the other is our Restoring Our Communities Student Success Committee. And really, Umoja Ibaka, it really aims to increase the success and persistence graduation rates of our African American, and other students. And it is an embedded learning community. I know you've heard about this before, but this is a large part of the work and the funding that we do out of our student equity funds. And similarly, Restoring Our Communities is a newer initiative, but it's an academic support program that really is developed by formerly incarcerated students for formerly incarcerated students, and helping them and systems impacted students, really helping them eliminate many of the biases and the barriers for completion. And so we're really dedicated at the college to eliminating the stigma that is there for our students, and creating a goal to wrap around from reentry to graduation and transfer. So we have some initial data of some of the work that we have done. So we've been looking at success rates in transfer level English from fall 15 to fall 17, and you can see some data here. Restoring Our Communities, we only have data, we've been just starting to track data in the fall, but you'll see here that students, the red is all first time in college students, and you can see our Umoja students have done better both in fall 15 and 16 at completing at higher rates than our general first time students. And you'll see in fall 2017 there was a small dip for our Umoja students, but very slight, whereas our Restoring Our Community students were just under where our all first-time students are. Here's success rates in below transfer English classes from fall 15 to fall 17 similarly. And this is really levels below transfer level English. And you can see here again, 100% of our Emoja students in fall 15 and 16 passed the basic skills English class below transfer. And you can see here that even our Restoring Our Communities students as well as our Emoja students did better than all of our first-time students. So the wraparound support and intervention programs are helping support our student success. And lastly here, one of the biggest issues for us, as you saw in terms of degree completion and how we get students through, is the percent of first-time students who start in below transfer level English in the fall and then enroll the subsequent spring in English 1A. And you can see that throughout the data here, you can see that being a part of the student support program shows a higher percentage of students who will re-enroll in the subsequent course because they feel a sense of community or are connected. I'll just say that I think while my colleague Tim had mentioned the fact that, you know, the data is backwards and stale in some ways, I want to say that really importantly, you all know that there are large-scale conversations going on across the state about our funding formula, and it will be reliant on this data. And so this is the movement that we're making, and so it really does behoove demonstrating things that we're using like these programs and things like that to support the success of our students. So now is Dr. Maria Lane Burns for Merritt College.
Good evening. Okay, let's see. Okay, well, for the fourth time, there's another scorecard. And as you can see, we had a little over 10,000 students on this iteration of the scorecard. And it just basically shows you the demographics. But when we look at our degree certificate transfer completion, our prepared students, 58%, and of course, it takes a little longer for our unprepared, and overall at 35%. Our persistence rate, again, unprepared students tend to be higher because they're pushing, they're trying, and we're nurturing, and we're trying to get them through, so they tend to persist a little more. We have the same issues as the other colleges around achievement rate of the 30 units, still that whole 60 to 65%, and the CT rate of 40. So we have the same issues as the other colleges, and primarily as what Dr. Gilkerson mentioned. For our 5-year trend in basic skills English, you can see we had a little bit up and down, but we are looking at how many of our students did improve a little bit in English. Our English rose about 7 points to the last year, with significant increases in African American and Latino students completing those courses. What I'd like to use as an example of what we're doing to help close that achievement gap on our way to eliminating it is our first year experience program, otherwise known as FYE. And we call ours FYE Impact, standing for Intentional Motivation to Persist Academically in a Community for Transformation. The program at Merit is a year-long program, and it was created to bolster the first-year experience of freshman college students. It's designed to connect them to additional resources on campus, like the Learning Center, EOPS, CalWorks, disabled students, as well as Next Up, which is KFES or foster students and financial aid. The program is composed of 3 learning community cohorts, and it fosters opportunities to start career exploration, develop voice, increase confidence, and network and build relationships. 2 of the learning communities are English 201 A and B, preparation for composition and reading, paired with a Counseling 57, career and life planning. And the 3rd cohort is composed of English 1A, composition and reading paired with Counseling 57, career and life planning. And so you can see how when our students are taking those kinds of courses, they're going to persist a little more because they've got that counseling piece in there. The only requirements for the program is the student needs to be considered a freshman, need to be eligible to enroll in English 201A or B or English 1A, and need to commit to being in the program for at least a year. Now, what you're seeing on the slide I also use this program as compared to or opposed to our other learning communities because this learning community is open to all students. So with Sankofa, which is our Umoja program, it's primarily for African American students. Puente is primarily for Latino students, but FYE is for everyone. And if you can see the disbursement of ethnicities there, although 61% are Latino and 23% are African American. And this is just to give you an idea of the course enrollment and how well students did. These are the kinds of courses that they're taking in the program. The student retention and successful course completion for FYE Impact program has increased from the last 2015-16 program review. In fall of 2015, the average course retention was 81%, and the average successful course completion was 65%. And in fall of 2016, the average course retention increased to 91%, and the average successful course completion was 85%. The retention increased by 10% in fall 2016, and course completion increased by 20%. In spring 2016, the average retention was 83%, and in spring 2017, it was 84%. And the average successful course completion in spring 16 was 69%, and in 2017, it was 72%. In this case, it was only an increase by 1%, but we'll take what we can get. As you can see from the data, the FYE Impact Program is successful in meeting the 3 SP requirements of access, retention, and completion. And what does it go to next? I think we just ran out of colleges. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of our college presidents for that report. Do we have any questions? Trustee Weinstein?
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank all the colleges for doing hard work in this area. I know that is really important to you. And it seems from what I've read that the learning communities in each of the schools are doing better. I mean, are really helping our students. Is that correct? Yeah, so that's really a very positive note for the future. And I look forward to seeing the scorecard later on because I think it'll go up. I wanted to ask you about the associate degree of transfer. Now, that's a very specific degree. Is that counted in there anywhere? Where is that?
So that would be counted under the degree and certificate completion rates?
Okay, can you tell me if you compare that with the other completion rates, is it higher, lower, the particular associate degree of transfer?
So I don't have the data offhand to be able to answer you directly. I think each college has a number of associate degrees for transfer pathways that have seen a growth in students doing them as they're sort of a guaranteed transfer to the California State University campuses. So I would conjecture, without any data right in front of me, that it has there have been more students who have opted to apply for the degree because it sort of has a currency to it that sometimes the associate degree might not have had previously. So I would say that. I don't know the other presidents. Tim?
Well, I'll just say, I agree with Dr. Gilcherson, and I think it's because they can see the direct pathway. This is what I'm majoring in here, and it's going to go transfer straight over here. So everything I'm doing at the community colleges is going to apply to the four-year institution. So now I know what I'm doing, and so I can go that way. They tend to be a little bit, more squishy, vague, when they don't have that.
So
that
are we going to be encouraging that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wanted to say that definitely in terms of when we go to some of our partnership meetings, especially with CSU East Bay, we get the data from East Bay, and they do show us that we are steadily increasing, in some cases doubling the number of associate degrees for transfer from Peralta. And I think what would be interesting in terms of digging deeper into the data is to look at the ADTs in relation to what the scorecard measures in terms of, for example, the slide earlier, prepared students in terms of ADT completion, ADT transfer, unprepared, and then overall.
No, you guys keep going. That's great.
So I thought I would just add that I'm really proud of the presidents in meeting with CSU East Bay President Leroy Murashida. He had shared with us that we are one of the community college districts that still required and did not transmit our transcripts electronically to them. So our students were having to request them. So for the first time ever, Laney did the fall. We submitted all of our transcript electronically to CSU East Bay, not requiring our students as a barrier to transfer, and all the other colleges will be doing it this spring. And this was a huge undertaking, and I want to give a lot of kudos to our district folks who helped make sure this process happened and saw to it. So we're trying in the ways we can with exactly what Dr. Tomanek said about increasing the rate, but also trying to make sure that there are not other additional barriers for our students to matriculate and transfer to the four-year college.
Thank you.
That's excellent. Do we have any other questions? Trustee Bonilla and then Trustee Hollis.
So thank you for a comprehensive overview, and it's always exciting to look at visualization of the work, right? It captured in this format. So I appreciate the work that you all have done to show us, and very exciting to see how support services are very impactful in helping our students be successful. One thing that I did look at, and it's just an interesting note, is that on your demographics slide, your student information slide, for each of the colleges, I looked at your student counseling ratio, and I just could not help notice the ratio between each of the colleges, BCC having 563 to 1 student counseling ratio. When I looked at the rest, there was a discrepancy or a delta of 149 from Merit to 309 students, meaning, for instance, College of Alameda, your student counseling ratio is 872 to 1. That's 309 students more than BCC at 563. And then when you look at Laney, 852 to 1, which is about 289, just shy of 300, right? I'm like, what is that? And then the least amount, or the lesser gap was between BCC and Merit, where they have 712 to 1. So just an interesting note, what are we doing with counseling? How are, and how is that figured in as support services, right? Looking at the whole student and how important that is. So just an interesting note, food for thought on for all of us. Yes, go ahead. It's just a thought.
No, I think it's a really, really important point that you're making, and this is also, I think, what is happening sort of again when we talk about where counselors fall in terms of our ability to, to count them on one side of the funding formula, and so they do fall in quote unquote the non-instructional side when we see things like exactly what you're saying about how important it is. So as the state is relooking at things like the funding formula and talking about this, we need to be really thinking about the role of faculty, both librarians. I have librarians in the audience too who do a lot around student success. They are counted on the wrong side, quote unquote, as well as counseling faculty. So it is a balance. Many of Laney's most recent hires for counselors was funded out of categorical dollars to support student success and support programs. So it is a balance that I think the colleges are all trying to grapple with.
Thank you very much. Trustee Hollis.
Hello, Presidents. Thanks for the presentation. I don't have a question, it's just a comment I wanted to make about the algebra for statistics class. When I first came into Peralta District, I took it at a college at Alameda, and I just wanted to say that it was a great help to me understanding statistics. When I actually took Math 13 at Laney College, like I was highly successful in it, and I just wanted to highlight the fact that that is a very useful class, and I think that students should really get into that class.
thank you very much, college presidents. Do we have any other comments, any other questions? Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen?
Thank you very much. I really appreciate, in particular, the more updated version of the data that we usually get data that's like 5 years old. And so this data was actually so much more helpful to understand what we're currently doing. So thank you for making that available. My general question would be this. When we look at the state-mandated data, it shows certain kinds of trends. But as we know, data doesn't really necessarily tell the full story. If you were reporting out qualitatively or quantitatively to try to demonstrate what we were doing and demonstrating kind of where we were struggling, but also where we were really having successes, what kind of data would you want the state to be saying, yeah, look at that. That actually is sort of the critical issues. Those are the things that demonstrate the texture of what we're doing and the struggles that we in our particular district have. And I ask this in particular in the context of a governor's budget proposal, which is proposing performance-based funding, which focuses on a very specific set of metrics. Now, we've run the numbers on this in our district already, and we know that in using that funding formula, our district, a district which has a share of struggles, would lose significant funding. Now, some of that they say will be held harmless. For how long, I'm not sure. They're not really quite sure. What is it that we should be looking at that maybe we're not? Thanks.
I'm sure the others can chime in for lots of other things. I think in a general category that right now the scorecard doesn't really get at, because it's intended when they made it several years ago, was a lot of the equity measures that are coming out through the equity plan and more recently in poverty rates. I think areas like us that are urban, or especially some of our brother and sister districts in rural areas, really get disproportionately impacted on issues of poverty and other sociological indicators that suburban areas might not get hit as hard. And I think those, if they were more taken, it would start unpacking our data a little bit more and telling our story, and why sometimes maybe our persistence might not look as great as another school, but maybe those students aren't facing some of the challenges our students are facing.
So I agree, although I will say that I see it right here too, in terms of homelessness, food insecurities, mental health issues, all these kind of things, and they still want performance-based, but they're not looking at what we have to look at, and that is the entire student, the whole student. They don't come to us with just, wanting an ADT or a certificate or whatever. They come to us now. I mean, we are the spot. The community colleges are the spot where students come for hope. They come for food, they come for clothing, they come for it all. And nowhere are we being helped with that. They are working with us towards the mental health, but I think a lot more needs to be done because it's so rampant. We used to just talk about veterans at one point, and then we talk about domestic violence. I mean, there is an array of hopelessness that goes on that you've got to deal with, and our faculty could probably tell you better than we can, because the faculty, and they're listening to them and hearing that, or seeing people fall asleep in their classes and that. So I think I would say that they need to understand the whole human being, and all of that contributes to whether or not, it's not just whether they learned it in K through 12, it's about if they don't have enough to eat or the right kind of thing to eat, they're not gonna do well. If they're worrying about where their kids are gonna sleep that night, they're gonna try in class, but then they're sleeping in their car. Or, those are the kinds of things that aren't real, we need more help with. I'll just say that.
So just to add very quickly in terms of qualitative data that I would be looking for, at the last board meeting, we talked about mental health issues and also an approach for, culturally trauma-informed care. So I would think that that kind of qualitative data would be very powerful in terms of the work that we're doing across the district and yet each of the colleges to try to build on that component. Now, of course, another measure that scorecard doesn't really tackle with, and probably other kinds of grants that we have to report on, they don't really measure the work that we're doing or the impact around professional learning. And so we put a lot of resources into professional development, especially at the district level, and we never are asked to really talk about the transformation that happens with our faculty, with our administrators, in terms of just focusing on the funding. And so the last statement that I want to make is that all the research does tell us that performance-based funding does not lead to those kinds of outcomes. And at the CEO meeting, we had a lengthy discussion about it, and we remembered the Partnership for Excellence funding, many years ago, and that did not really move the needle. And so we are really working hard to try to say no to this new funding formula.
Thank you. You guys did an excellent job. I really appreciate the report and the up-to-date information. Just have one question. 3 years ago at a trustee conference in Monterey, we were introduced to the idea of having the, similar to what Dr. Karras is doing, where you have the two classes that are together so that it'll aid in the learning, and then having the English classes that help with respect to the transfer, the transfer credential. And so my question is, how did these colleges, if you guys could just tell me briefly how the colleges and the faculty work together to turn that around so that we could see these increases? Because that was, when we heard about it 3 years ago, it was there were studies, there had been some investigation of it, but the implementation of it, there was no answer with regard to how it was going to be implemented when we heard it. So I'd like to hear how the faculty and the presidents and the VC of instruction were able to make that switch in that amount of time, because we're told that we're not nimble as community colleges, but there's a scorecard that shows that you guys adapted and were able to help the students.
So I'll just speak for some experience in COA and maybe just focus on mathematics. And if others want to talk about other disciplines, that's great. So in our math area, I think a lot of it did at first come through professional learning. We were very fortunate to get the Basic Skills Transformation Grant. Now we're in our second year of that. And that gave some space to allow math faculty to sit back and look at data. And we also had COA over the last several years have really been building the research capacity of our college for actually faculty to have research to actually engage with. And once they start unpacking it, and you don't make it a fear-based, it's just first a discussion, it's a discussion of data, and everyone wants to help the students better, they can relax a little bit and they start taking it in. And then in Peralta and mathematics, I'm very proud of that they really did come together as a math unit in Peralta. To talk about it. And they said at one point, like, COA was a little bit of ahead. We have one person who was really keen on doing this co-rec. And they said, go ahead and do it as a pilot. We're not gonna hold you back or say, no, it's bad. I just go and bless you. And whatever you learn will help inform us later. So it really is, I think there's been a lot of paradigm shifting within our faculty in some of these disciplines, where they realize the past, which we put into place all these levels out of a good heart, because we thought that at the time was what to do, turned out not to be the right intervention. And so now we're finally starting to, and once we start pivoting, it's easier to keep turning. It's the first, just getting the wheel turned a little bit, it's the hard part. Once you turn a little bit, then you can start spinning it. That's it.
I just want to then just underscore that what Tim just described is when we have the faculty really move to a collaborative space. And so not only just within internally in the college, but when we have departments that are having the conversations and looking at high impact practices, evidence-based practices, and setting that time to do that faculty exchange, I think that has made a big difference not only in math because it's continuing, but we see that across English departments, across the counseling departments. Annually they get together, I believe once or twice a year, and they bring all the counselors together for joint in-service training, and each college gets to share some kind of intervention that they're trying out. to then have a discussion about the success. And I know that a few of the other transfer-focused departments are meeting collaboratively as well.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that, and appreciate you guys. Very proud of you guys. Our Fab Four.
Through the chair, I'd like to make a recommendation, and I know this is completely, I'm not even sure where to put this, but it just seems to me that this is an opportune time to share some of these learning transitions that you all have experienced, and whether that's at the CLC.
You
or
guys
at the
can't leave us. Wait,
ACT.
hold up.
Right.
We'll let them see you, but you
Right.
have to leave with us.
Look at, see, they'll just keep you hidden. But I just think this is an opportune time for us to, to go out into, we attend, and Trustee Brown is at the head of this, quite a few conferences up and down the state and obviously throughout the country. But this is really an opportunity for us to share what we've learned, what Dr. Karras told us didn't work really well, and how you start this change. And it's really at these conferences that we go to that we see so many of our other community college partners express this. As Trustee Brown said, I was at that conference in Monterey, where we seen them doing this what did you call it, Dr. Karras, co-requisite? They called it something else. And it was like somewhere up in upstate New York at some community college. You remember that? Exactly. And so I think it's high time that we take you all on the road and kind of showcase some of the work that you all are doing. We'll get permission from the Chancellor on that.
All right, so thank you very much. We're very proud of you guys. Next item on the agenda is the ratings presentation.
Members and constituents and administration. Well, we did, Standard & Poor's gave us a global rating, and it's been upgraded for the district, for our district's bonds. And we have Vincent McCartney. He will be going through the presentation. Excuse me, we have a couple of typos that we saw, but excuse the typos. And he's going to go through the presentation, give a little background history on Standard & Poor's, and just tell you about our upgrade. And Vincent?
Madam President, trustees, my name is Vincent McCarley with Baxter McCarley Berry. We're a financial advisory firm. And also with me is my colleague, Jesse Ortega, who is a former rating agency analyst. Also in the audience is Dave Olson, who is with Public Financial Management, also a financial advisor. As mentioned, there was a recent surveillance by the rating agency, specifically Standard & Poor's, as a part of their normal process. There are 3 widely accepted rating agencies: Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch. And again, as a part of Standard & Poor's or S&P's surveillance practices, they made their periodic review of the district relative to its outstanding bond obligations. And so that is sort of the nature of Standard & Poor's and how they are represented. The ratings are based upon, one, the general economic conditions of the community that you serve. One, obviously, is your management practices, and specifically as it focuses on financial management. Are you able to cover your financial obligations and the like? And those are some of the considerations that go into the rating itself. As a part of Standard & Poor's surveillance activities, they basically affirmed the existing AA- stable rating for the outstanding general obligation bonds of the district. And those are the voter-approved bonds that the district has issued over time. And AA category is considered very strong. The highest category is AAA. But again, AA is considered very strong. And that would be, again, just a benchmark of where the district's general obligation credit would sit. At the same time, or near the same time, Standard & Poor's also upgraded the rating on the district's other post-employment benefit bonds, upgraded them from a A+ to a AA-. Again, there was, what occurred is that S&P modified some of their criteria, which basically moved the district's rating up to the AA category, and again, specifically AA-, again, with a stable outlook. Some of the strengths that were cited within their report, again, a very robust economy or economic base that the district sits within, the maintenance of strong reserves, which is always one of their key important metrics that they look to, the very strong support that you've received from the voters over the years, especially in regards to the parcel tax, which provides added financial flexibility for the district, and just overall financial flexibility for the district is also there. As with most organizations, they also cited challenges, one specifically related to the cost of pensions and other post-employment benefit obligations. And that's sort of a national issue or challenge within the public sector. But again, one of the items that they cited. Another item I think is something that you've talked about recently is just the challenge of trying to further improve the controls relative to your financial statements. And so that's an item, again, that they cited within their particular report. As mentioned, their outlook is stable. What they do is they look at what past trends and metrics have been. They take a snapshot of where you are currently, and then they also look forward what their projections are of how well the district would do. And again, putting the rating in the, or affirming the general obligation rating at the AA-, again with a stable outlook, and an upgrade relative to the other post-employment benefit bonds from a A+ to AA-, all with a stable outlook. And with that, if you have any questions, that concludes the presentation.
Thank you very much. We very much appreciate that. Do we have any questions? Well, I really appreciate it. I have one question to ask, and with respect to the rating upgrade, how does that translate with regard to cost savings? Because it would, of course, lower the interest rate on, so if you could explain what that means in cost savings.
Right. It won't mean anything to the district immediately in terms of the bonds that have already been issued, because they were already issued at a set interest rate. But should the district come back with a new bond obligation or would refund any of the outstanding obligations, then that would, where the savings would accrue to the district, basically in turn toward the taxpayers.
One other question, with regard to a parcel tax, should we go out for a parcel tax? What would that effect be for the taxpayers with the rating upgrade?
Okay. It won't have a direct impact to the taxpayers in regards to the extension of the parcel tax, other than the fact that by the rating agency's metrics, by having an extension of the parcel tax, it would add to the financial flexibility of the district going forward, which means that a stronger rating underpinning, which means a lower overall interest cost.
I was looking for that interest cost answer. Thank you.
Good deal. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is the board development, item 6.1, and the facilitator is Trustee Bill Withrow.
Board governance. Suffice it to say that we have a lot of guidance. We have a lot of instructions. We have a lot of constraints in terms of how we function as a governing body. The governing board legally represents the 650,000 residents of the 6 cities in North Alameda County. We establish policies to determine the what. The chancellor determines the how. The board assesses compliance with approved policies. The board approves asset allocation in the role of determination, planning, and the maintenance of the institution's fiscal stability. It's an important role. The inherent role of board dialogue is to capitalize on the broad range of talents, experience, and skill sets that prevail on this board and throughout the institution. The real upside of any board, commission, or committee is the achievement of synergy, where 9 + 9 = 25. It's the cooperation to produce a combined effect that is greater than the sum of their individual parts. A real constraint that we have is time. Just as an example, if 9 trustees spoke for 3 minutes each on 17 agenda items, that would equate to 459 minutes, or 7 hours and 39 minutes. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Now, we have, in terms of the structural guidelines, we have 27 policies that apply to the board. I don't know whether you all know that or have memorized all those, but we have 27. We have, we have 4 of them that are pertinent to what I consider to be the structure of the governance. 2200 defines board duties and responsibilities, and it relates to the California Education Code, Section 70902. 2210 defines the duties of the board president in conformance to the California Ed Code 72000. 2220 recognizes the board will function as a committee of the whole, and this is an important element here, in accordance with California Education Code 54952. Then we have Board Policy 2715 that addresses the Code of Ethics and the standards of practice for the conduct of the members of the board. And this is probably the most important of them. It gets into defining acting as a whole, managing conflicts of interest, handling special interest groups, maintaining appropriate conduct at board meetings, maintaining confidentiality of closed sessions, exercising authority as trustees vis-a-vis the board as a whole, and handling of administrative matters. Then we had the Board of Trustees Handbook, which the revised one came out about a month and a half ago, the end of January. We had the Brown Act, and we have Robert's Rules of Order. There's a lot of guidance in there. Then we have norms and protocols. It's been a standing norm that a 3-minute limit on the dialogue of a specific trustee in terms of a question for or a comment before going to the next trustee who wishes to speak. 3 minutes, okay? Questions or concerns regarding specific items in the agenda to be expressed to the chancellor or the board clerk should arrive no later than 12 o'clock noon on the Monday before the Tuesday board meeting. And that, again, is very, very important to keep the education of the individual board members, which is important, but to keep it before the actual board meeting. But this also means that the board clerk should receive the attachments that for all the presentations, so that the board members can see what the presentations are going to be, so that they can, if they have questions or look for added guidance or amplification, that they can pass it on to the board clerk and the chancellor. The chair of all board meetings is obviously the elected president, and this is where I think a lot of people don't relate to at over time. The chair will normally remain neutral during discussions. The role is to obviously preside over the meetings in a manner that is efficient, effective, and equitable. The chair is called upon to maintain structure and discipline, including assurance that all 8 members of the board have an equal access to convey their thanks, appreciation, concerns, questions, and understanding of topics under consideration. The chair is called upon to limit the time allotted to each trustee when one of them is pursuing questions or comments and enforce a limit of not more, again, than 3 minutes. This is a courtesy to all the other board members that would like to play in the game. The chair is called upon to enforce all aspects of the Brown Act that would include limiting all comments by trustees on subjects that are not specifically included or published in the promulgated agenda. For example, no commentary can take place, or no reaction or response can take place with comments from the public. The chair is called upon to admonish language by board members. I haven't seen that as a problem. The chair's been called upon to enforce Board Policy 2715 in terms of maintaining appropriate conduct. Goes on to state that the chair needs to facilitate thoughtful deliberation, good decision-making, and effective use of time. And the target from the state is that our board meetings, the business part of the board meeting, shouldn't last more than an hour to 2 hours. Anything over 2 hours is an extreme, and in fact, the state guidance is that at the end of an hour, we should have a break. The chair is called upon to enforce all elements of Robert's Rules of Order. And I'm not going to read this to you, but if you would like to see it. The other thing that we're not real good at, but again, the board acts as a whole. We don't have 9 spokespersons. We have 1 spokesperson for the board, and that's the president, the elected president. And they refer to that many times as the board of a whole. But it even goes beyond that. Questions, comments, or other dialogue by individual trustees need to conform to the fact that the president speaks for the board on all matters. Therefore, a trustee should be addressing their comments to the chancellor via the board chair. That's in basically all of the language. That's the structure. And I'll open it up now for comments.
Thank you very much, Trustee Withrow. Do we have any questions? Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen?
Oh, I'll wait.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so we have Trustee Handy. Do you have? Trustee Handy and then Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen.
Yes, I thank you, Bill, for doing this for us. I believe that we vote our trust in who we select to be our board chair, and we speak through one voice. And when we are following and doing things as we should do, any questions that we have is directed to the chair directs them to the chancellor directs staff to bring back the information or whatever. We also, as a board, agree that it takes time. We respect that most staff members are overworked, and so that we don't request individual reports. If there is something that we need more information about, if it's not a consensus agreement from the board, then we don't ask that takes place. So we don't ask that things be done on behalf of the board for one or two people's requests for information. It needs to be a consensus. And that there's also the responsibility of the public that we deal with to adhere to that, is to, they have a question, bring it to the board chair. You know, people want to send us emails and all of that, which is great. We'll read them, and usually the response should be is that, thank you, and we're going to be referring this to the district office so that the chancellor could give it to the person who can take care of it for it. Right. It's not that we're not trying to interact with people, but it's just that I've been on this board, I've seen really, really bad boards. And we worked very, very hard for many years. I've been on this board for 16 years, and we worked really hard not to have rogue actions, not to have people running off on side agendas. And when we do that and we work together, then we are really a great board. And looking at what happens up and down the state, I think we're doing a really great job of that. So people need to understand that. You may send us information, and which is great, but we always speak as a group, and we're only as good as, I mean, 1 vote means nothing, 4 votes means something, but majority of the time we're all on the same page. But we do, as a board, agree to follow protocols so that if you send us, you know, request or whatever, Yes, we will read it. We're very interested, but we are going to pass that on directly through the president and the chancellor so that they could handle it. Don't expect that any one of us is going to be able to come back and solve your issue. It doesn't mean that we're not interested. It just means that in order to have an effective board, we really have to follow those protocols and work together. And as I said, it took years of work to get to this point, and I hope that we can continue in that manner, and I hope that the public understands how it works.
Good point.
Thank you very much, Trustee Handy. Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen?
So that I get this right. And I'm going to try to put a timer on it so that I stay within this newly announced 3-minute rule. Thank you. I'd like nothing better than to have our board function well, and especially simply to comply with board policies regarding civility and district anti-bullying policies. If we're going to have policies and protocols, then they should be announced clearly in advance, and they should be carried out in an even-handed manner. Sadly, I find this difficult to believe. It's difficult to believe that the board is prepared to do so at this time. I find instead that the board leadership and members have consistently thwarted goals of having civility and even-handedness. And I'll just give you 3 examples. I and other board members that I know of, including Trustee Weinstein, have been verbally abused numerous times, including tonight when one trustee used the F word towards me. Audible side comments and interruptions are frequent, and these incidents have taken place repeatedly in front of our board president without interruption, often with the president's collusion. Just prior to tonight's open session, I was engaged in a private conversation with the chancellor seeking more information about a contractor's hourly rate and the overall cost of the contract, as well as seeking his opinion about the best method for board members becoming informed about critical issues. Sadly, this private conversation between me and the chancellor was forcefully interrupted by our board president, who astonishingly claimed that my conversation with the chancellor was in violation of our board policy. Finally, at our board meeting last week, after I'd been recognized by the board president, was in the middle of asking completely legitimate questions of our staff in a polite and orderly manner, my time was repeatedly interrupted with side comments, including from the board president, who, after taking 11 minutes of time herself, cut off my questions at 7 minutes. This evening, when I asked the board president to abide by appropriate parliamentary procedure, she informed me that she would begin to listen to me when I, quote, showed some class. In regard to the 3-minute rule, I would direct your attention to the comments made by a trustee regarding a Deloitte contract, PeopleSoft correction contract last December, and just time it and see whether we even came close to 3 minutes without interruption. So what is unfortunate about this situation is that each member of this board, actually, I think, Trustee Withrow, you got it right. Each member of this board has real strengths in areas where they can contribute. But by modeling that kind of behavior, that repeated incivility, interruption, the use of profanity and loud voices, in front of students, faculty, staff, and the public, this abuse serves both to stop people more vulnerable than I am from asking vital questions about our district practices, while it also serves to silence dissent from the orthodoxy being imposed by those who are in positions of power. I certainly hope we can begin to do better, and I thank you for your guidance in this regard. Thank you, Trustee Withrow.
Do we have any further trustee comments?
Well, you know, I always say I'm new, and people say here, well, no, you've been here a year. But, you know, compared to the rest of the crew, who've been here a long time, I still do feel new. So, and I'm learning a lot, and I appreciate the fact that, you know, my trustees have helped me learn those things. But, you know, I will say that my sense is that we could do a little bit better when there is disagreement. And as I mentioned last time, I think that if there is a 3-minute time limit, we should have like an egg timer or something so that everybody gets that so that it's not that we're just guessing, but we actually know that the 3 minutes is up. and that we try to be respectful as we can to each other, so that we can really get into discussions where there may be very different positions that we take. And I think it's healthy to have different positions. In the end, I think we do agree on an awful lot, but when we don't agree, it's very, very tense. And so I'm hoping that we're able to make it a little bit easier, the disagreements, and just I think if we use civility and respect and use that as our main rule, I think we'll do well. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Okay, Trustee Handy has a question. I would just like to make a statement that the board as a whole generally works very well, but there are members of our board that don't feel that working together with the rest of the board is at all a requirement of professionalism or something that should be done in the best interest of our district and our students. And I don't agree with the comments that were made. I have personally put up with tirades and outrageous behavior, and all of us have experienced some of that, and our staff has been put through unnecessary harassment and long-winded and comments in the guise of questions. And as a member of the board, I believe that it is our responsibility to show discipline ourselves. There is no leadership without first being able to lead oneself in a professional manner. So I would say that most of us are able to do that, but it's incumbent upon all of us not to tolerate behavior towards our staff, towards our students, and towards any member of our community that is inappropriate. And I am pleased to have been allowed to represent this board as its president, and I do not feel that it is responsible to permit inappropriate behavior without that being, without a comment and that being checked in the way that we have done so by limiting questions and asking everyone else if they have a question. So I think going forward, our board can show a much better display of discipline with this handbook, and there'll be trustees who may never agree to cooperate with their colleagues. However, that is the function of the board, and as a legislative body, we have power together, but not as individuals. Trustee Handy.
Okay, the question, in terms of the 3-minute time limit, that's something that's been around. Are we getting specific quotes from the trustees' handbook? Or,
the 3-minute,
I believe I've seen it before, but.
Yeah, your point is well taken. I categorize that as a norm or protocol. It's not written infirm into any of the policies, but it's inferred by the language they use in terms of structuring the behavior of a board, in terms of putting forth positions back and forth, that it be done in a very efficient time frame. And we historically have used 3 minutes for members of the public, and I think that was accepted many years ago as kind of the norm for the board members. We haven't used a clock. I don't know that it's that specific. It's, in my mind, it's more a general thing, something in the vein of 3 minutes as opposed to 15, 20, or 25 minutes, that kind of. It's, you know, the structure that is there, and the reason I focused on the structure of what we've got, the structure is there because we're dealing with a lot of issues, some of which are very complex. There's no simple answer to just an awful lot of them, but we've got to do it in a very efficient manner. And it seems to me that if in fact we get to the point where we're not able to do a business meeting efficiently within a 2-hour period, the business part of the meeting, then we ought to look at having a special meeting.
Through the chair.
Okay.
Oh, I know, I'm a little
Bonilla,
hidden,
and then
I'm a little hidden
Trustee
way over here, but that's
Riley.
okay. No, you're. Trustee Withrow, thank you for this overview of the handbook, which I think is very important. So it's always difficult and challenging to talk about the interpersonal and what happens in our interactions as a board. There's a public face, there's a private face to us, and we have work to do. We are human beings. We are not without fault. We come, I think, with a great level of passion and a degree of compassion about the work that we do. So as you can imagine, we can sometimes have very colorful and heightened conversations about some of these issues that we address. I do think that this board, and I don't think that we are kind of out of the norm of any other body of this type, that continuously needs to self-reflect and do a lot of internal work on our professional engagement with each other. So I appreciate the review again of this handbook. I appreciate everyone's personal experience on this board. And so with that, we definitely need to come to an agreement to move forward and continue to work and strengthen us as a body. Because having a fractured board is not something that I look forward to. And I don't think that that's where we're at. I do think that there are opinions and positions that juxtapose each other, and they can get very contentious. And with that, I look forward to supporting our work and our own professional development as a board. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Bonilla. Trustee Riley.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So just thank you, Bill, for the presentation. So, you know, I think we're pretty liberal in our time often, you know.
Right.
This is a business meeting. I think we should always try to conduct it at that level. And I think we try to do the best we can. But, you know, like, for example, we may need to revisit for example, public communications. It's 15 minutes total.
That's what the policy says.
Yeah, so maybe that's not reasonable. Maybe we need to go, because then we say 3 minutes total, and then 3 minutes per speaker. Well, that's not realistic. And then the discretion of the president. So we may need to go back and look at that. You know, I know at City Council of Oakland, I've been to meetings and they've addressed it. Everybody they get a minute, you know, and they got a timer. So that's one we may need to go back and look at. But overall, I'm very pleased on what we're doing and how the board is conducting themselves. And I think we just need to conduct ourselves as a business meeting. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I agree. I'd like to make one last comment. I've chaired more meetings than I really want to talk about over the last 60 years, and have been involved in a lot of them. And the one serious constraint that we have is the Sunshine Law, the Brown Act, where you can't have dialogue among the board members. And it's the law, so we can't do anything about it. But it does make a real difference. When I chair a meeting and are involved in a meeting where the Brown Act isn't covered, it's totally different. You know, because people if they see something before a meeting, they call up somebody and whatever, and they chat. So when they come to the meeting, there's a meaningful dialogue. We can't do that. So we just have to recognize that it's the law, that's a constraint. But I think we do pretty well. Is there anything else?
Thank you very much, Trustee Withrow. We really appreciate the time that you've put into giving this report and the time that you commit to the Retirement Board, along with Trustee Riley and myself, as well as the District Board. Trustee Handy, did you have any additional? Thank you very much. So that concludes our board development. Now, the next item that we have on the agenda is the consent calendar. Do we have a motion to approve the consent
I'd
calendar?
like to move to approve the consent calendar, Madam Chair.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. The next item we have, actually, our consent calendar is divided by board matters and academic affairs. So I actually will make a motion to approve the entire consent calendar, which would include, we've already done the board matters, also the academic affairs, which is section 8, 8.1, and 8.2, and then the finance, which would be 9.1, 9.2, and 9.3. Do we have a second?
Right here.
Okay, it's been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And the next item are action items. We have 11.1, consider approval of change order number 1 to the construction agreement with HM Construction, Inc. for Merritt College parking lot G improvements in the amount of $108,711.56.
So moved.
Move approval.
It's been moved and second. Do you have that, Madam Clerk?
Discussion?
Yes, we have it moved and second, so now we'll have the discussion on item 11.1.
Through the chair.
Yes. Trustee Bonilla.
So this is a change order for $108,711,000 due to, from what I read, there was a discovery on the thickness of the asphalt that apparently was not discovered in the original assessment. And so I take serious issue with this. So that is this is a huge change order, a very costly change order, and one that we're always trying to mitigate. And when I went back and I looked at all of the bids, and I understand that even with the change order that's come through, again, it's how are we positioning ourselves to not be subject and vulnerable to a change order of this magnitude? What have we put in place to mitigate? How are we utilizing our either our internal knowledge or external level of expertise to assist us in mitigating something like this, Chancellor? It's just.
Yeah, thank you, Trustee Bonilla, for the question. Of course, when this came up, we were not happy with it either. It was a surprise to us, and there are many things that, and I've talked about some of this before, that we need to do as we implement or continue to implement our bond program, which is to make sure that we have certain expertise that we may not have inside. I think we have relied a lot on internal expertise that perhaps is not able to get us to where we need to be with things that are complicated. We have this issue. We've had other issues before that were so. I think it's in general really building our bond program in a way that will allow us in the future to mitigate some of these situations, and using expertise and testing in particular that we failed to do in this case that would help us in the future.
Thank you for that.
Trustee Hollis couldn't hear the Chancellor. He was asking Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen to quiet down. Thank you very much, Chancellor. Trustee Bonilla, sorry, we were just trying to get a little bit of order so Trustee Hollis could hear.
While you were all doing that, the Chancellor answered my question, and I may have some more to add to this during my time. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions regarding the change order? Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen?
It's not so much a question as just a word of praise. A lot of times items come to you and you're like looking for, where various things. And I want to just say this particular item was very clearly prepared. It was very clear why we were doing the change order, who had initiated the change order, what the costs were, who the vendors were, and like that. And that's that kind of staffing just makes our job as trustees so much better. And so I want to just raise this up and thank the staff for this item and the other items that or the quality of the presentation is such that the board is able to act responsibly in a more consistent manner. So thank you.
Thank you, and the staff certainly appreciates the recognition. Trustee Gonzalez.
Thank you very much, Chancellor, for that. I would like to add that the Chancellor's put quite a bit of work, and so has our legal counsel in reviewing these items. And I'd also like to thank Trustee Riley. We've had 4-hour sessions in pre-agenda setting, going over everything in detail, our board clerk as well. So we do appreciate that effort, because it's been quite a while that we've been going through these items, and we're starting to get there. So we appreciate that. The next, so we now have a vote to take on item 11.1, and we've had a move in a second. Oh, Corey, did you have a question? No. I think he just was. Oh, Trustee Withrow.
Just a brief item. I had a similar question to Trustee Bonilla on 11.1, and Sunday night I sent an email to the Chancellor, and he reported right back to me and gave me the background on why it was the way it was, why the figure had to be that extensive, and that they'd already started construction. It wasn't something that, anyway, the point is, the positive part of it is I got a feedback right away. I appreciate that.
So we'll now call the question and vote on this item. Madam Clerk, do you need a roll call for the action item?
Trustee Weinstein? Yes. Trustee Handy?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez-Yuan?
Yes.
Trustee Bonilla?
Abstain.
Trustee Riley?
Yes.
And Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
The next item on the agenda is 11.2, consider approval of Resolution 17/18-37 for a piggyback agreement with the Warden Company for the Laney College Library Study Furniture Purchase and Installation. So we have a motion and a second. Do you have that, Madam Clerk? So do we have any discussion on item 11.2?
Question.
Was that a call the question
Call
or a
question.
question?
Call the question.
Okay, so it appears as though we don't have any discussion on 11.2. So we'll call the question and go for a vote. Madam Clerk? Oh.
Trustee Weinstein? Yes. Trustee Handy?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez-Yuan? Trustee Bonilla?
Yes, I just want to let you know it's getting cold in here.
It's been cold a while, honey.
That means it's time to go.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
And Trustee Riley?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
The air conditioner's on.
So the next item on the agenda is item 11.3, consider approval of Resolution 17/18-36 for a construction agreement and amendment number 1 for the Emergency Blue Phones project at Laney College, Merritt College, and the District Administrative Center. Do we have a motion and a second on this item? So it's been moved and second, and
Bonilla,
we had Trustee Bonilla
second.
and
Trustee Withrow, second.
and I believe Trustee Bonilla and Withrow, and we have Trustee Weinstein.
Yeah, hi. I wondered if, in the description that I read, I couldn't get a sense of how many of these blue phones we're putting in, and I did read that either in this or in the facilities book, that we don't have enough funding for, I think it's Berkeley City College and Alameda for the blue phones. So I just wondered if we could you tell me how many blue phones we're putting in, how many we actually need, and any ideas how we can get funding for these blue phones, because security is really important.
So certainly we will do our best to meet the needs that we have, and you're right, this is a safety and security issue. So I'll ask Vice Chancellor Ikawa to address that. And thank you for, yeah, I know that you had given me a heads up on that, and we didn't quite get there to get you the answer ahead of time.
Altogether, we have 74 blue phones district-wide. At Berkeley City College, most of the emergency phones are like duress buttons that are in the ladies' restrooms. They're still functioning, but we want to be able to replace them with modern technology. So what you see here is a phase 1 of deployment due to insufficient funds. So what we're trying to do is to replace the existing phones that are over at Mary College and Lenny College, with the intent to come back for a phase 2 for College of Alameda and BCC as soon as funds becomes available. So we are working with the finance department with the intent to see how we can be able to deploy this. If not possible before the end of this academic year, then we'll be able to do that next school year. And these phones essentially are needed at this time, as you indicated, and they are much more robust. They have cameras, they have speaker phones, and they are able to relay communication direct to the district command center here in this building, and the dispatcher is able to see the individual and give them assistance. So what we found over time is that the more the item delays, the more costs keep going up, and we want to go at this time to go do this as quickly as possible.
Thank you for that information. And are these the type phones like at Merritt College in the parking lot?
Yes, but the modern ones that have more technology and features to be able to make them useful as compared to what we have there that is obsolete.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Do we, Trustee Bonilla?
I think I have a clarifying question. So my understanding is that we are approving a contract for a little over $2 million of funds that we don't yet have, but we are executing a contract to secure the pricing so that the cost doesn't go up when we do have the funds?
That's right, go ahead.
Yeah. For Mary College and Lenny College, we have a phase 1 and 2 for each college. The bid came out to be about 1.8 million. 10% of that would have been 2.036. However, the funding that is available from the state scheduled maintenance program can only be able to do about 1.2 million. So this is a phase 1 that is going to utilize the state funding that we have now for 1.2 million. Then we're going to come back to the board when funding becomes available to do phase 2 of that project.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
You're welcome.
That cleared it up for me. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, and I appreciate the work that you've done on this. Vice Chancellor Icaro, I remember 2 years ago when you were looking at that issue and when we had an IT review by the Forelli Group, and we were looking at how to wire these blue phones appropriately. We were looking at how to have them call go into the 911 center instead of our Alameda County Center. We wanted a first responder that would be able to get there no matter what time, and this has been quite an involved process. And I remember you told us at that time, about 2 years ago, you said it's going to take a phase 1 and phase 2. First, we have to make sure that we have the technology appropriate. It was the wiring, it was the digitizing the calling system. There was a lot to be done in terms of technical expertise, and then there was the hard equipment. So I appreciate the work you've done on this, and this is quite an involved process, and it's taken a while. So I'll call the question, and we'll go for a vote. Madam Clerk, would you like a roll call vote?
Yes. Trustee Weinstein? Yes. Trustee Handy?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen?
Yes.
Trustee Bonilla? Yes. Trustee Riley?
Yes.
And Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
So the next item on the agenda is consider approval of a construction agreement with A&B Mechanical, Inc. for 860 Atlantic Avenue Modernization Project as part of both Merritt College Genomics Program and College of Alameda Physical Science Programs. Do we have a motion and a second? It's been moved by Trustee Bonilla and second by Trustee Withrow. Is there any discussion?
Call the question.
I just have one question. Chancellor, on this one, I recall when we were going through this on agenda setting, and our legal counsel, I'm sure, can answer. The HVAC is a C20 license, and I think our counsel was going to address making sure that the agreement had the appropriate license because it said A, B, or C20, and I want to just make sure that we don't have any complications.
We added a provision in the contract which requires that, and then Kelly had confirmed that the contractor who was selected has that license.
I just wanted to double check because it's a lot of money and we've got to have that HVAC work. All right, so I'll call the question if there are no other comments. Madam Clerk, would you like a roll call?
Trustee Weinstein? Trustee Handy? Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez-Yuan? Yes. Trustee Bonilla? Yes. Trustee Riley? And Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
The last item on the agenda is item 11.5, approval of facilities master and technology plan 2018-2028. Do we have a motion and a second so we could?
I'll second it.
So moved.
Okay, we are eking out that motion and second. Are there any questions?
I see 3 microphones on.
So we have Trustee Gonzalez-Wynn. Who else has got their hand up?
Withrow needs to turn his microphone.
Okay, we got Withrow's mic off. Trustee Gonzalez-Wynn.
This isn't a question so much as a comment on the plan. So this has obviously had a lot of work put into it. It's obviously sort of a good blueprint for a lot of the work that needs to be done in the district, which is a little, well, I'll just say more than a little intimidating. It's overwhelming, the amount of work done in the district. And the part that I'm concerned about in addition to the plan itself, and I spoke with Chancellor Laguerre about this earlier today, is that the issues of affordable housing and student housing, workforce housing, et cetera, are not addressed in this. We've had a very small amount of work done by the board. We had one presentation, I believe, at Merritt College, a short presentation on housing itself. And I think it's really clear from repeated comments, insights from our student trustees, from students, I mean, it's just obvious. We have a housing crisis that is more than just a housing crisis. It's a student success crisis. When I was in Sacramento about a week and a half ago, we were talking to legislators, and one of the students that we had with us was currently homeless. She lives in her car, has to find a safe place to park, has to figure out where to study, and so forth. And I think that I was elated to hear that Chancellor Laguerre was planning to come back to the board in April as we kind of push this out to begin to readdress that as an item. And so, you know, I will vote to support this master plan, but also with the understanding that it's a partial statement of our needs, and that a fuller statement of our needs would necessarily address some other issues, including deeper issues of environmental sustainability. But I'm deeply appreciative of the work done by literally hundreds of people throughout the district who've really thought carefully about what the space should look like and how to create learning environments that support both the students but also the people who work here. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Gonzalez-Wynn. Do we have any other questions or comments? Chancellor?
Yeah, we certainly want to bring a few things back to the board to complete our needs for infrastructure, similar to what you have today as far as the facilities master plan. Housing is something that we are all very concerned about. that our students have asked for. We know that from a workforce standpoint, it is a barrier for us to be able to attract certain individuals to our area, those who are not already living here. So we certainly, that's an issue that we want to brief the board on and bring, some action in terms of what we want to consider. The other thing is sustainability plan. Will also come to you later in the spring. We have, that work is almost completed, but there's more work to be done with the colleges and the district office on that. We also have an underground infrastructure evaluation, that's assessment that's taking place right now, where we look at our pipes underground and see what those things look like, and also mapping what we have, which we currently is currently not adequate. So you're going to have that coming as well. And then the last one is a study that the board supported a few months ago to look at our mechanical structure. That is, it's a scary report in terms of what we need, and the fact that we have mechanical equipment that have been in use for over 40 years, and our staff, operating engineers, have been piecing them together with duct tape and what have you, and now they're not. So we're going to bring all of that to you to complete really the needs that we have. Now that's the scary thing. You remember I talked about earlier in my report about the needs assessment. That will all be part of that as well, in terms of the steps that we need to take, the partnerships that we need to build in order to meet our needs completely.
Thank you very much, Chancellor Laguerre. I appreciate the report that we have received from our facilities planning. And I appreciate also the report on affordable housing that we got from Sharon Corneau, who came to our board meeting and gave us a and also, Chancellor, about 3 years ago, that was one of the things that we were looking for when you were hired in a board retreat. You had made a presentation on housing, and I'm glad to see that it's getting more support from the board, because you had brought that, and it got a mixed review. But we do appreciate the fact that you were conscious of that from the beginning. It was one of the board's goals from the beginning, and I'm glad that we could continue down that road. And it seems like we're getting a little bit more unanimity on that. So I think that that's a good thing. So we will then go for we'll call the question, and Madam Clerk, if you would do the roll call vote.
Trustee Weinstein? Trustee Handy? Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez-Yuan? Trustee Bonilla? Trustee Riley?
Yes.
And Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
Great. So now we are at item 12.1, Board of Trustees reports, and we will start with Trustee Weinstein.
Thank you. Just a few things. I've had a very good talk and work with the Chancellor around working on policy of new trustee orientation and orientation for new administrators. I think if we can get this completed, I think it will really help new people coming on, so I'm very happy about that. Also, I had the honor to listen to Anita Hill on Saturday night, and I think probably everybody who was there will say it was just pretty extraordinary. And she's an amazing woman, and very proud of the work that she is doing now and what she faced before. So that was pretty extraordinary for me to listen to her. And I want to say one other thing that I think we need to pay attention to. A new study today came out from Georgetown School of Education, and what it says, and this is a national study, women with associate's degrees made less than men with no college experience whatsoever. So when we are talking about graduation. Women are getting degrees, but there still is a gender wage gap, and I think we have to pay attention to that, and I hope that we will look at it. Okay, thank you.
Trustee Handy.
Wow, I have been busy, but I've had the opportunity to, in the past couple of weeks since we last met, to moderate a panel for the Black elected officials and faith-based leaders. And it was a panel on how to stay whole and healed in such egregious times. And it was, we had clergy members and professors from Cal on the panel. And it really was great because we look at how we can serve the city, but I think that the focus of the organization has been how do we support each other as we're working in these jobs that are very difficult, very challenging. There are so many issues that we're confronted with, and especially for us in looking at the funding and the constant changes that happen in Washington. So I think it was a very powerful, very well attended, and I also want to thank our people from Merritt College and President Burns for coming and others, because that meeting is at 7:30 a.m. I also had an opportunity to attend the Niagara Democratic Club's 45th anniversary celebration, and it's wonderful to sit there in the presence of people who stood for inequity and stood against injustice and got our first people the ability to have development jobs, construction jobs, and just jobs, period. They're the ones who push the needle for every minority that you see working on any construction project in the city, which will still be very, very few. If it wasn't for these people who found their voices years ago in Oakland and pushed for it, we'd still be in the same situation. So it was great to be there with this Niagara Club who started 45 years ago to push this agenda, and to see people coming in from other states to attend this. It was really great. Had the opportunity to attend the Powerful Women of the Bay luncheon. And again, it's just, we have so many incredible women doing such incredible things. And we had people from Google there, and we had people who've worked with Peralta, and we had numerous people being honored. But then the opportunity to network with these women again. And these are the types of events that I would love for us to expose our students, especially our female students, to. We have so many women's organizations like Ignite and Emerge and some of the other ones, so that we can make sure that once they get their AA degree, that it doesn't stop there, that they have the network and the mentoring that they need so that they can move their needle further. And then the last thing of all was the attending the Barbara Lee Elihu Harris lecture series. And I know that they had said earlier that they had expanded it to a second room where they had over 2,200 RSVPs for that event. And I think everybody showed up. And it was such an incredible opportunity to hear Anita Hill speak. But one of the other unexpected great speakers was our own Meredith Brown, who was phenomenal. And Barbara Lee, of course, was woke and lit as well. And of course, Dr. Burns, I was like, boy, I know some really powerful women, and I just really loved, I mean, the pride that we all had to be at that event. It was something very special, and I want to thank all of those, and especially our amazing students, and getting to see the video of them crossing the Pettus Bridge and how they gave themselves a notice every day to push, to challenge their own belief systems and to try to experience what people who made those first moves did. Let me tell you, those students are just absolutely amazing. So again, I've been very blessed. There have been quite a few really powerful events that have taken place, and I'm glad to have had the opportunity to attend them all. Thank you.
Trustee Bonilla.
So a few weeks ago, and I don't know how much the Chancellor has shared about the... You left it all for me? Oh, thank you so much. So I had the great opportunity to attend a conference with the Chancellor and another Peralta representative on public-private partnerships. And this conference was an amazing conference and it's just the timing of it with this facility master plan update. And you're right, Trustee Gonzalez, when it's overwhelming to see all the needs. And this is a working document, so knowing that there's more needs and more details that need to be added to this. But the public-private partnership is just that. It's where the public meets the private sector in construction development. And the more complex, the more unique your projects are, the more interested these two entities would come into play with each other. And what they offer is unique models on design, build, finance, operations, and maintenance. And I don't want to get into too much because I know that the Chancellor has a little bit of internal work to do with the board on bringing us up to speed with the details of that. But I would like to share with you that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I could tell you before this conference, there was no light in terms of our needs. So I was very impressed. We were able to obtain quite a bit of information. We took copious notes. We spread ourselves out. We were just complete sponges, the Chancellor, myself, the other person, and took extensive notes that are being compiled if they haven't already, and through the Chancellor will be prepared and brought back to us. So I'll keep you on the edge of your seats about that. Thank you.
Trustee Bonilla. Trustee Hollis.
Hi. Hello, board, presidents, faculty, staff, public. Not much to report. With our Peralta Student Council, we didn't meet quorum in our last meeting, so we technically had to take the long road to approving the discounted BART survey. We are just waiting for all ASs to confirm the survey and push for it, and that should happen by March 23rd. And other than that, we have the close of elections for all Peralta colleges coming at March 16th. And I just wanted to make a slight recommendation for the student trustees who will be running for student trustees to possibly at least like come for a public comment or something like that in front of the board to at least express who they are and what they plan to do as a student trustee or something like that, so that we at least get a face for who's coming after us. So it's just a thought, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Hollis. Trustee Gonzalez-Yuan.
Thank you. I wear a lot of different hats as a community college person, as a faculty member, as a union leader, as a trustee, and so forth. And so over the last period of time, I've kind of been trying to figure out what hat I'm wearing at what time. Some of the students who spoke earlier made note of the California Campus Camp program that we've been building out across the state. And it was a really successful training this year. We had 85 participants from 14 colleges, from Southern California all the way up to Shasta, but with a real focus on Bay Area. And these were teams of faculty, staff, administrators, students who were coming to figure out how do you organize within the community college system specifically to advocate for the policies that fulfill the needs of our community. It was a lot of fun, a lot of work, but very successful. About a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, I was at the Faculty Association of California Community Colleges Advocacy and Policy Conference. And what was especially useful about that conference was presentations on budget. We sat through maybe 2 hours of presentations by the Chancellor, State Chancellor, as well as Chancellor's staff, talking about their take on the governor's budget proposal. And it was really interesting to see, people know there's in the budget proposal is $120 million earmarked for this 115th pure online college. And what was interesting to see was that the governor, that the Chancellor's office really had nothing to support it. They had no data, they had no analysis. It was just like basically people say, well, the governor wants this. And that's not the reason to vote for a policy to spend $120 million and then $20 million ongoing. There's real problems with this performance-based funding as well. And just by point of, by way of comparison, if we look at the ongoing challenge that we've had with part-time pay parity, which the state, powers that be always say, well, we can't afford that. What would that cost us? About $100 million. And in this budget, they're putting in, well, $100 million of one-time money, but $250 million for this new funding formula. It's like when people in power want things to happen, all of a sudden money appears. And so I think this is something we need to push back on, because that college and this funding formula are not going to be good for us or anybody else in the state, frankly. And then the last thing I'll just highlight is I had the distinct pleasure of being at Berkeley City College with Trustee Weinstein about a week ago for the opening of the new resource desk for undocumented students there. And the work that that community has done to lift up student voices and empower people to be visible and be successful despite the horrific environment that we are in right now, the very frightening environment that we are in right now. The work that they've done there is really admirable, and I just felt very proud of our district, of our college, of our students and faculty and staff, and frankly, our presidents who've done that work. So thank you very much, and that's me.
Trustee Withrow. So I suppose it's Meredith Brown. So as Trustee Handy had mentioned, I did have the opportunity to attend the Anita Hill lecture. Dr. Maria Lane Burns spoke well on behalf of Merritt College. I really appreciate the fact that we are supporters of the Barbara Lee Elihu Harris Freedom Center. The students of the Freedom Center are phenomenal. Trustee Riley is on the board of the Freedom Center, and I believe, Trustee Hollis, you're working with the Freedom Center on the Student Voter Project, or are in conversation with them?
Which was Student Vote Project, or?
The Student Voter Project that you did the presentation on for the.
Yes.
So I think it's integrated into our fabric, and I'm really proud of that we're a part of that. It was great to have an opportunity to speak at that event. I recall the Senate hearing when Anita Hill was testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee. It was gratifying to be able to be invited to speak by the Barbara Lee and Elihu Harris lecture series, and to represent Peralta, and also to speak on an issue of sexual harassment, which is just a form of bullying, and that's something that we really all, it's a form of oppression that we all speak out against. People of good conscience would speak out against, and so I'm pleased to have been able to participate in that. And also, the week before, the Ignite was having their lecture or get-together where we're supporting young women at high school and college that are interested in being community servants or being involved in elected office. And it was nice to be able to attend that and support some of the young women that were finding their path. Some of them were interested in law, some of them were interested in public policy, and to be able to support them. And that was very gratifying, and a lot of what we really want to do here at Peralta. So that was a very, it's been a busy couple of weeks. And also, as many of you know, we have just had recently a decision from the Eastern District of New York in Brooklyn with regard to another preliminary injunction that has required the DHS to start processing the DACA, continue to process DACA renewals. So we're keeping our eye on that, and I'll be doing another presentation coming up in April on immigration reform in the education setting. So it's good to be a part of this community, and thank you very much. And I'll turn it over to Trustee Riley, who has got some closing comments for us.
I'm sorry, a little confusion there. Okay, the next regular board meeting will be held in 2 weeks on March 27th at the District Office Boardroom. The board wishes everyone a safe and happy St. Patrick's Day this Saturday. And you doing this one?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I want to share just a brief memorial statement. One of our former employees, Lloyd Moffitt, passed. He has served in the district for over 35 years. He started out as a administrator in the district, and most of his career was counseling, both at Vista College and then Berkeley City. He was a graduate from high school in Washington, D.C. He was a high school All-American basketball player, came to the University of San Francisco where he was all-coast basketball player. Really, these are some of the, I don't know, did we get the photo? Yeah. It's showing? Oh, is it up there? Oh, they're looking at me. Oh, okay, I can't see it. Okay. Okay, so Lloyd's on the left. And there was just a whole group of people who came in at the time Lloyd and Pawnee Rasmussen took that photo of us when he retired. That's outside of the Zellerbach Auditorium. And so just a fabulous person and was dedicated to his community and always thought of Peralta highly. And so I just want to share that with my colleagues and the community. And we want to keep our thoughts and prayers with his wife, family, and his friends. And I want to thank you for sharing this with me. If we could just have a moment of silence in his honor. Thank you very much.
Madam President, that concludes the announcements for this evening.
Thank you very much, Trustee Handy. Our meeting is adjourned.
I know the picture was up there. I'm looking for the picture over here, and I'm talking. That was nice.
I'm trying to find.
What?
These are all white people. I'm just trying to find.
Are you going?
He's not from.
That's Lloyd Mumford right here.
There's a couple. Which one?
Oh, no, he's black.
I looked under images.
Look on the University of San Francisco.
That's the reason I'm reading.
Oh.
Canadian, LinkedIn.
We could ask the chancellor if somebody's going to be going.
Facebook. I'm already on Facebook.
Okay.
Well, let me just see what happens when I do that.
Travel safe.
This guy's from Zimbabwe.
Yeah, that's not it.
No.
Looking for ways to come back.
Yeah.
No, he's not coming.
You really need that.
Yeah.
I could see that, but not.
So he came in with that group, like with Odell and all that group, you know.
Yeah, okay.
So he was a, early guy, Oh, he's a veteran. I forgot to say he was a veteran. Too.
Meredith, here.
Thank you, Meredith.
I'm gonna roll this big
Here.
old book and put it in this bag, because it's really heavy.
I'm looking for the picture right there, and it was over there.
It is over there.